Stop shouting. Wow, it doesn't matter. You're in your head, lesson, classroom management, trying to survive, getting blow after blow after blow because you waste their time. You are not able to teach a proper lesson. You don't choose how smart you are. No, he's so smart, I was teaching this person. You're just mistaken. Very good, give me 5. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? It's really not fair. What you want to teach, how you want to teach, where you want to teach, what stuff you need to teach them. What could I have done better today that I can do tomorrow? Hi fellow teachers. Today I would like to share with you 5 things I wish I knew before I started teaching ESL. Being a teacher is so much more than just being a teacher, and I would like to share some insights with you that might actually save you time and frustration if you are considering a career in ESL. So let's dive in. Number 1. If you want to start in a career in ESL, I would strongly advise you to think who you want to teach. Do you want to teach individuals? Do you want to teach groups? Or maybe you want to teach a mixture of these two. The reason why I'm saying this is because I really noticed that when I was teaching individuals, my actual struggle was to create a lesson that would be suitable for this one child that I was teaching. The lesson itself was really a piece of cake compared to teaching groups. When I started to teach groups, I realized it wasn't now just about teaching. It wasn't just about doing the lesson, but it was a lot about juggling students' moods, navigating relationships, making sure that students feel well within a group settings, making sure that when some students are winning, some students are losing, I try to navigate that. So students' emotions, students' psychology, there's so much to it. It's not just about teaching. So honestly, if you are just beginning, I would really strongly advise you that you start with teaching individuals. Why? Because you will only have to focus on perfecting your teaching skills and not on classroom management. And classroom management is just another skill that you need to learn apart from teaching. So these are 2 different skills that require a lot of time and effort on your side. So just like I said, if you're starting out, you do not want to put yourself in a position where you have to juggle. Okay, so lesson, classroom management. But you want to make sure that you do it step by step. That's at least my advice from me to you. So to sum this up, start with individuals first, and then once you feel confident in your teaching skills, you can start teaching groups and perfect your classroom management. Number 2, reflect. If you're starting out, this is one of the most important elements in your teaching journey. So whenever I would come out of the classroom after a finished lesson, doesn't matter if it was 20 years ago or now, I always ask myself a question: what could I have done better today that I can do tomorrow? So really go with that question. Really finish your lesson with that question and think, what can you do better? Because honestly, you can always do better, and it makes all the difference. So because you can be a good teacher, a mediocre one, and you can be the best teacher. And which one do you want to be? Honestly, myself, I always want to be the best I can possibly be. So if you're starting out and you're not really pondering and reflecting back on how the lesson went, you will never be able to grow. And teachers' role, I believe, is to grow, because then you're going to be able to serve your students better. You're going to be able to be a better teacher for your students, and thus the lessons are going to be more effective and your students are going to get better results. That's how much this works, because the best teachers make the best students, and that's pretty much how it looks. So always and forever reflect, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. I make mistakes even now, And it's very normal. It's not about beating yourself up because you made a mistake. It's about learning from that mistake. So ask yourself a question. What could I have done better today that I can do tomorrow? Number 3, classroom management. Just when I talked to you about point number 1, teaching individuals versus teaching groups. Yes, when you want to teach groups, you have to consider classroom management. And classroom rules have to be there from lesson number 1. It's a non-negotiable. Without classroom rules, you are not able to teach a proper lesson because you have to navigate the students. It's a group setting. Everybody has to know what rules there are so that everything is organized. In a disorganized environment, there is no learning. Or maybe there is partial learning. But if you want your lesson to be super effective, you need to ensure that there are classroom rules. Here at my school, at Effective English, we actually have 7 rules that we introduce in the first lesson, and then we revisit these rules every single lesson. And why do we do that? And why is it important? We do that because if something is repeated every single lesson, students understand that this is important. They're like, oh, we say that again? Oh, so that must be important. If the teacher is stressing this out every single lesson, then it must be important. That's 1. And number 2, it's very clear for the students of what is expected. What is good behavior, what is considered good behavior, and what is considered a not so good behavior, or like crossing the line. Because just imagine, okay, you have a kid who's just shouting, let's say, right? Like, is it considered good behavior or bad behavior? It depends. It depends on the setting. If a kid is in the playground and he's shouting, well, is it bad behavior? No, it's not. It's fine. It's just like an expression, right? So it's okay. But in a lesson environment, from your perspective, I'm sure it's not an okay behavior, right? So you don't want to say like, stop shouting, because it's like, it doesn't really give your student a way of dealing with that, because the only thing the student hears is like, stop doing something. But like, why? I was shouting in the playground. Why is that a problem here? So if you do not set the expectations of what is considered okay and what is not considered okay, then your students might actually do these weird things that, 1, are going to stress you out, and 2nd, they're just going to make your lesson flop. So let's say your student is shouting while you are trying to speak. And your rule in the classroom is 1 person speaks, regardless of shouting, right? If I'm talking and if a student is shouting, obviously this student is disrupting my speaking. And the 2nd rule, there's listen when somebody speaks. So when I'm speaking, right, all the other students are supposed to listen. So that student that's shouting, student 1, is not listening, and 2nd, is disrupting me speaking. Okay? So what I can do is I can stop and say, okay, thank you very much, Tomek. So right now I am speaking. Okay? So how many people speak at the same time? 1. That's number 1. And what do? We listen when somebody speaks. And who's speaking now? Teacher Mira. So if I'm speaking, you listen. Okay? And now you have to listen. So that way, I am really showing them without criticizing. I'm showing them what I expect from them. And so this is super clear, right? I reinforce this. This is super clear. Student knows exactly what I expect from them. Number 2, it's fair. It doesn't matter which student is doing that. It doesn't matter if it's Kasha who I like or if it's Tomek that I don't like. It doesn't matter. It's fair because there's this behavior. It doesn't follow the rules. So it's obvious that I can address this. If you don't have those rules, then you just pretty much make them up on the go. And usually it's just like you just say stop without giving the idea of what behavior you expect from the students. So it's clear, it's fair, and obviously there's no subjectivity. Here at Effective English, when a student does not follow a rule, they get a warning, and they get up to 3 warnings. After 3 warnings, they come to the office and we call the parents. and inform the parents. And what's cool about this, we don't call the parents and say, oh, your child was misbehaving, that's why we kicked them out of the class. No, we just say, you know what, we have this rule when one person speaks, and your child has been speaking over the teacher. Number 2, I told all the kids to stand in a circle, and your child decided to sit underneath the table and said he would not do it. So he did not follow teacher's instructions. Number 3, your child was disruptive, and thus he did not help the other students to learn. And we have this rule when you have to be kind and helpful. And so being disruptive towards other students was not helpful. That's why he was kicked out of the class. So now the parent knows exactly what was the problem and what our expectations are. So the next lesson, when the child comes in, they know what has been expected last lesson, and they know what is expected this lesson. And also the parents know, so they can also support us in that. So this is the power and magic of classroom management and classroom rules. They give us teachers tools to ensure that students follow a certain way of behaving within a group environment, without which obviously there will be chaos. It would not be able to do the teaching in a proper manner. So just like I said, it's a non-negotiable, and it's going to help you a ton, and it's going to take a lot of stress away. Number 4, we grew up in an environment where we are being rewarded, at least in the school system, we are being rewarded for the outcome. And so students who excel, they always get the highest score, and students who basically struggle, they always get the lowest score. What happens then? Obviously, the ones who excel are constantly being reminded that they're so good. And obviously, any feedback they get is good. So they are being fueled by positive feedback. Whereas those who struggled are being fueled by negative feedback. You're not doing so well. So what happens? Those that excel still grow because they're like, yeah, I'm great, I'm fantastic. And those that are struggling, they're just like getting blow after blow after blow, which actually cripples their confidence. What happens when their confidence is crippled? They don't want to learn. They get discouraged. They don't want to do things. They don't want to learn things because they are afraid of failure. So your task as a teacher here is not to reward your students for the outcome, but for the effort. So it's the effort that counts, because you don't choose how smart you are. You choose what you learn, obviously. So just like even we look at little babies who learn to speak their native tongue, their native language. It's not like everybody, when they turn 2 years old, they learn to speak Polish or learn to speak English. No, it's not like that. Everybody learns at their own pace. So does it mean that we should punish those babies that were not able to learn their language at the age of 2? We don't punish them. We wait. We patiently wait. And we should do the same with our ESL students. We should patiently wait. Of course, we can challenge them. Of course, we can push them. But we cannot reward the outcomes for those who struggle. And how do you reward the effort? So let's say a student is struggling. I don't know. He pronounces the word apple in such a nice way. You say, wow, apple. You said apple's very good. Give me 5. They wrote something nicely. Give me 5. They drew something nicely. Give me 5. They clapped in the song. Give me 5. It may seem like, whoa, these are like these small little things, but just imagine. They come from the educational system where everybody tells them you suck. So then you have to show them that they don't suck. They're just different. And they have these little wins here and there that maybe they're nothing compared to those who are geniuses and amazing and super intelligent. But it doesn't matter. Everybody's got their own journey. Everybody. And you as a teacher, you have to cater to that. You cannot be focused on those who excel. It's so easy to show like, oh, he's so smart. I was teaching this person. It's great. But it's not really entirely your doing that made this person that way. It wasn't you. This person was just able to learn super fast with your help. But that student who's struggling is the one, like, if you're going to be able to make that person better, that means you did your job really, really well. So you should always look to those who struggle, and this is going to show you how good of a teacher you are. So remember, reward effort, not the outcome, because you're going to have mixed ability students, and you need to make sure that you encourage each and every one of them in spite of their abilities. That's number 5. Great preparation is key. Failing to prepare is preparation to fail. It cannot be further from the truth. And to be honest, just imagine a situation. You have to carry out a lesson with a group of students. You didn't have time to prepare. You come to the classroom. You know roughly what you have to teach. How are you going to appear? Are you going to be confident? No, you're not going to be confident. And trust me, kids, especially kids, can see and sense exactly how you are. If you lack confidence, you can be sure they will really test your borders. They will test your boundaries. They want to test you out and see how far they can go. Okay, so then you come to the classroom, you're not confident. You don't know exactly what you want to do. It takes a lot of time for you to start the first activity. You started the first activity, they're doing it, but now you're not really focusing on the actual activity with the students, but now you're focusing on, okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? So your thoughts are not really in the lesson. You're not in the lesson with your students. You're in your head trying to fix the problem of you not having prepared for the lesson. And it's really not fair on your students, because if you feel like you can actually teach a lesson just like that, you just like walk in, you're just mistaken. And maybe it's not going to be such a big problem if you have a class with just one student, obviously, because there's no classroom management involved, so it's easier. But like if you have a group, I mean, it's a recipe for disaster, because just imagine you just finished the first activity and you're thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? You're not prepared. You don't have the worksheets printed out. Oh no, guys, I'm going to go out and just like print out the worksheets now. So wait a moment. Okay, these are like 2 minutes. You actually waste off the lesson to print out the worksheets that you could have printed if you had prepared it, but you haven't. So it's a waste of time. Then your students start to like get like all crazy, right? Obviously, they're not in the mood for learning because something's happening. It's not like a very structured lesson, right? And then you come back, you try to like get them in the mood for learning again, and it's a struggle. It's difficult. Your stress levels go up. You're super stressed out right now. And like you can forget about being a good teacher right now. You can forget about being the perfect teacher. You can forget about being the best teacher in the world. Right now you're trying to survive. And you don't want to be in survive mode in your lessons. It's like it's already a stress to actually manage a class of people. And now a stress of not knowing what you want to teach, how you want to teach, and where you want to teach, what stuff you need to teach that. You really don't want to do that. And you have to also remember that you are there for the students. You come there. They spend their time with you. So you need to make sure that you serve them well, that you are the best version of yourself in that lesson. Because it's not fair on the students to come unprepared, because you waste their time, and time is valuable. And also, you want to be an effective teacher, not one who just like is like, you don't. So make sure you always come prepared for your lessons and very well prepared. And now let's have a little recap of what I have said in today's video. So number 1, if you're considering an ESL career, you have to think about like whether you want to teach individuals or whether you want to teach groups, or maybe a mixture of these two things, because they're so much different. With individuals, you just have to focus on teaching skills, whereas with the groups, you have to focus on other areas like classroom management. Number 2, reflect. Reflection is key. You always have to remember to look at your lessons and reflect on what went wrong. You have to learn from your mistakes and better yourself each and every time. Remember to ask yourself a question after each lesson. What could I have done better today that I can do tomorrow? Number 3, classroom management. So you have to have classroom rules straight from day one. You have to introduce these rules and then you have to reinforce these rules every single lesson to make sure that you can actually focus on teaching your students. Number 4, reward your students for the effort, not the outcome. So make sure to always see like how much effort your students put and not the outcome of those efforts, because you're going to have mixed ability students and it's not always possible to reward your students for the outcomes. And number 5, great preparation is key. You have to make sure that you always come super prepared. Why? Because it's going to make you less stressed. You're going to be super confident. With confidence, you're going to be able to teach way better. Your students are going to be super happy with the lesson. The lesson's going to be effective and you're going to become an effective teacher. Okay, so hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like that. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, happy teaching. Bye.